Hello, it is Crimson Duels here with another video. I'm doing a deck review of DDD, but before I jump in, I wanted to quickly say if you find these videos helpful, consider subscribing to the channel. I'm going to be doing a lot more of them. Drop a like in the video, and really appreciate you tuning in here. So without further ado, I want to give a deck review on a deck that is surging up in popularity and a bit of power right now. And it's not because it's necessarily like objectively the strongest. A lot of it, I think, is because of its a response to one deck in particular. And without further ado, I will mention it is Orcust, which has completely taken over the game, as most people expected when they saw that it was released there. So again, DDD has been around for a while. This deck here, other than just having one of the extra deck monsters, um, is really not including many new cards. This exact deck, just about exact deck I should say, has been around for quite a while. Top players have used it. It's hovered around kind of the tier 3 level, but I think that is changing pretty quickly, and yeah, because of the Orcust counter. So to start it off at a high level, I'll make sure that the deck is included in the description, but what the deck does really well, and I think the reason we're seeing a couple of different pendulum decks in popularity right now against Orcust is these pendulum decks often do a really good job of getting a lot of cards in the field quickly and making for a fast duel. Whether you win or you lose, you can kind of string plays together and be very, very powerful, and this deck is no exception to that. Um, a lot of it is revolving around, obviously, the Doom King Armageddon, so we're going to have 3 of those in there, and then we're going to have 2 of the Savant Kepler. Now, the command of the Doom King skill is very, very powerful. We just need to throw one of these into the extra deck, and we can take one monster, preferably Kepler, from the field, and one card from our deck. We put those in the pendulum zones, and we go to work from there. So the reason I am highlighting Savant Kepler, it is the only 10-point pendulum scale card in the deck. The 2 monsters that we really want to focus on getting getting onto the field there are going to be Doom King Armageddon and Abyss Ragnarok, which are both level 8 and can be very, very powerful. Obviously, 3,000 attack points, let alone the effect. And same thing here at 2,200, but being able to use its ability and special summon kind of monsters from the graveyard there. So very, very powerful. Now, again, mentioning that Doom King Armageddon is very powerful, and we need to kind of have it for the consistency factor of making the skill work, which is usually the best way to go about filling the pendulum scales. So obviously we have 3 of these in the deck, so already we have a pretty good chance of drawing one. We then add on 3 contract with the Dark Contract with the Gate, which guarantees us the ability to draw a monster we want, meaning Doom King Armageddon. So we have now 6 of the 20 cards, kind of can get us there. And we also have Card of the Soul, which is one more way if it's kind of your first turn and you haven't lost life points that you can search out a monster there. So 7 out of the 20 cards are going to be either the Doom King Armageddon or a card that can get us to it. So very consistent through that to be able to do it in kind of our 4 or 5 cards starting off. Now, this deck isn't particularly disruptive. It is very kind of offense driven. We have 2 Book of Moons, but now the big disruption thing and the piece that is kind of, again, what is, I think, driving it to become top tier and being able to fight off Orcust really well. Obviously, if we have any of the combinations Orcust gets in the field, we can Book of Moon them. Book of Moon is seen as many, many decks, so, not too uncommon, but Artifact Lancia is game-changing. This is one of the most powerful hand traps, especially right now, and what it does if you have it in your hand or face up in your field and you decide to tribute it or send it to the graveyard if it's from your hand, neither player can banish cards for the rest of the turn. So Orcust, as you may know, was going to work from activating effects in the graveyard and banishing those monsters. This is going to completely lock out your opponent from doing that. We have 2 of these in the deck, so a decent chance of drawing them. But let's say, very often if you're going second, you can't stop your opponent's plays and helping them get set up. So if you can in this occasion, because we have 2 hand traps that are very, very powerful. Now, this deck is often going to do better going second as far as like if we're talking about getting monsters in the field and the ability to attack, because that's what it all comes down to. So let's say, 2 out of the 20 cards, that's 10%. chance of drawing a Lancia. Any given draw, we're going to have 4 or 5 cards in our hand, depending on if we're first or second. But we also can go, and if we are to, let's say we go first, right? We get 3 level 8 monsters on the field. We can bring out the Xyz monster Coach King Giant Trainer. Now, we are trading the fact that we're going to have 3 monsters, turn into 1. It's not like it has 5,000 attack points or anything like that, but the effect is really where it comes into play. We can detach 1 material from the card, we draw 1 card and show it, and if it's a monster, we can inflict 400 damage to the opponent. The damage is a nice piece, but this allows us to then draw up to 3 cards, which is generally what we're going to want to do. And that gives us much, much higher chances if we don't already have a Lancia to get one. And even if we have one, sometimes we can get a second one so we can lock them out for another turn. But chances are, if we're able to lock out our opponent for 2 turns and they're playing Orcust, we can really take advantage of that and crush them. So we're talking about using Giant Trainer to send a monster to the graveyard, but we also, like if we're able to summon Ragnarok, and we can use this ability to bring a monster back from the graveyard. So good way to cycle through there. And the one other thing to add is, we always have ability to go to Infusion monsters here. We have 2 of them in the extra deck, so we have King Genghis, which when a spell or trap is activated, we can use the quick effect of negating it. Always very, very disruptive there. And we also have King Beowulf here. We can do once per turn destroy all spell and trap cards destroy all cards in spell and trap zones. And also if a DDD monster attacks, it does piercing damage. That's a nice to have, but we don't see a ton of monsters being played in defense position these days. Now, rest of the extra deck, the only new monster to this deck is Ding. If we're playing a ton of level 8 monsters, it just makes sense to have them, but I don't think it's by any means a focal point. We have the typical Xyz kind of chain here. We have Giant Trainer, and then we have the Sky Prison. Not going to see as much play, but doesn't hurt to have in there as well. So that is the overview. I'll jump in quickly to kind of my rankings that I have up on the screen here. So the overall strength of the deck, I'm going to put as a 4.5 out of 5, and it's kind of a relative thing. It depends on like when these things are being played, and I'm putting this in context of Orcust, but also Artifact Lancia. Like a number of different decks this can be very effective against. If we think of Phantom Knights, if we think of Elemental Heroes that are trying to use Miracle Fusion, a lot of stuff like that. So it's not like it's only countering one deck. It is disruptive to many different types of decks there. Consistency is 4 out of 5. I had it as we do have 7 different cards that can help us get what we want to for the first turn there. There are going to be, like any deck, you're going to get like a brick hand here or there, but I don't think it's often enough to really knock the deck and make it less powerful. So I'm going with 4 out of 5 there. Ease of playing also 4 out of 5. I think the first turn and just getting to the structure you want is really important, and then depending on what else you have in your hand, you kind of go from there. But you don't have to read your hand too much and be like, what should I do? I think the play is usually very straightforward, so pretty easy to play, but I don't think that takes away from the fun of it by any means. The difficulty of obtaining, I have as a 4 out of 5. It's not crazy hard, but I do think as we start to add like other pieces on, it becomes a little more difficult because we have 3 of the Doom King Armageddons from one box. We have to get 3 of Net Ragnarok from a different box. Artifact Lancia coming from another box. A lot of different places, obviously Book of Moon. Some of these do come from the starter deck from Declan, but not everything. If it was just these monsters in the main deck, I'd probably put it like a 3 or a 3 out of 5. 3 or 3.5, but if we look at the extra deck here, we have to get Declan to level 35 to get Flame King Genghis. This is coming from a different place. We now have Ding. Not crucial, but we all have the Xyz Dragons. We have Giant Trainer, and a lot of these, again, are coming from different places, so not the most simple deck to get. Not as difficult as maybe like Elemental Hero / like Hero Alliance styles, but it will take a bit of work to put together. And of course we have the fun to play. I have it as a 4 out of 5. I don't think the simplicity of playing is taking away from that when I talk about like trying to get Doom King Armageddon in our hand first turn. I do think it is still kind of a flexible deck, like the number of different monsters we have in the extra deck there. Like it's not you're not locked into one style of play, and especially the other monsters that you have in your hand are going to determine if you go into fusion, other ways that you're going to play, what you destroy, and those things like that. And I do find fun sometimes in decks that are just almost all or nothing. If you're disrupted often with a pendulum deck, then you're in trouble. But if you get rolling, which you do very often, then you can destroy your opponent quick and easy and move on to the next duel. And I think that these type of decks too can also do really well in a tournament style where, like I was mentioning, like you're somewhat limited on time if you're doing a KC Cup. You have that weekend, but if you can finish your duels much faster than something like a Code Talker Salad deck that's every time you're playing you're doing all of these chains to put it together and you may not even win or lose, this is going to lend itself to being played like over and over in a much faster manner. Save your time, get more duels in, and if you can get a good win percentage, you can do really well. So this is my deck review for DDD, as of kind of the meta, including Orcust really at the top there. So let me know what you think. Hope this video has been helpful, and more to come soon, especially some demo gameplay here.